The final stretch of the Premier League season is upon us. The final rounds of the Europa League are soon to be upon us as well. Manchester United have nothing to play for but one position or two positions and a bit more money in the Premier League, but they do have a Europa League competition to win. They're in the last eight. Whether they can win it or not, we'll have to wait and see. Let's hope that United can pull something out of the bag because, God, we all need it, don't we? It's been a miserable year, but hopefully there's something positive to come out of it. At the end of the season, a Europa League win, a Champions League place, more money into the coffers for United to spend a lot more wisely than they've been doing in the last few years. I'm Scott Saunders. This is the Promised Land podcast. And on today's episode, I'm going to be doing the big Manchester United squad audit. Everybody seems to do these, so I thought it was only right that I do my own version of it. Who stays, who goes, in my opinion, and maybe balancing out what I think United will and should do as well with all of my picks. So I'm going to run through all of the players on United's first team books, including the ones that have been loaned out. Obviously, I think you can guess what I'm going to say on those ones, but I'm going to be analyzing each player, whether they should stay or not, whether they should be sold, whether they should be released, all of that kind of good stuff on this podcast today. Please subscribe to the Promised Land podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc., and follow me on social media as well at _Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. It's been a week of lots of speculation reports, lots of players. Tyler Dibbling is worth 100 million quid apparently to Southampton. Absolute madness. This is the time of year that really fries your brain, doesn't it? With all of the players that United are being linked with. I will talk about players that United are being linked with and that United could end up signing on future episodes. But this is an audit of the squad as it is. What positions United need to look at buying and strengthening, which players need to maybe move positions based on what United are going to do over the course of the summer as well. I'll talk through all that today, position by position, player by player. And let's get into it. It's been a couple of minutes, and I figured like there's no time like the present. Let's talk about the goalkeepers. Andre Onana, Altay Bayindir, and Tom Heaton are the players that we need to discuss and talk about here. And I've got to say, all three, this is maybe a controversial start to my squad audit and what I think United should do. All three of these players, Heaton, Bayindir, and Onana, are on my out list. Tom Heaton, looking like he might end up retiring. We've barely seen him over the course of the last few months, but I think it's maybe the right decision for him. He's out of contract in 2025. It's the writers on the wall, and Tom Heaton is going to go. May end up retiring. What he does next remains to be seen. But the real talk here is on Altay Bayindir and Andre Onana. Bayindir has been linked with moves away a fair bit. He obviously had that big performance against Arsenal in the FA Cup, and it's been mainly challenging for him because he hasn't really played as much football as he would like. And there have been some suggestions in the press that he may look to go back to the Turkish league to try and win a place in the Turkish national team for the World Cup in the US or in North America next year. And I feel like he's never going to be good enough to be Manchester United's long-term number one. And therefore, I think United paid not too much money for him. So if you can raise a little bit of money, make a bit of profit on him, United could really use that. So I think Bayindir, as great a day as he had in that Arsenal game, as much as people are calling for him to maybe start over Andre Onana, I don't think that's going to end up happening in the long term, really. So it might be the right decision to let Altay Bayindir go. And Andre Onana is the main one that I wanted to talk about here because I have been asked to talk about him specifically by a few of you guys who listen. I did do a small section on Andre Onana in the last episode where I talked about what United should do with him. He's been linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. He's been saying that he turned down clubs like Arsenal in the past as well before he joined United. But my take on Andre Onana is that too many mistakes. I don't really feel as though he instills enough confidence in the supporters or in the players that he's playing behind to make them absolutely convinced that he hasn't got a mistake in him. Now, we've seen it all too often. United have spent a hell of a lot of money on a hell of a lot of players, and they haven't ended up working out. But Onana's not been the worst signing in history by any means, I don't think. If he ends up staying next year, which is a completely real possibility, by the way, and I acknowledge that could really happen, but this is my squad audit. So obviously, as I say, I'm going to be talking about who I think should stay and go. look, if you're going to get a bid on Andre Onana from anywhere, most likely Saudi Arabia. I know this has been shot down in certain places and rubbished, but I think if there is any real possibility of making any large sum of money back on Andre Onana after United bought him a couple of years ago, I think this is something that United should do and should take, because I think United need a different, not need, maybe in the next few years could really do with somebody different between the sticks, whether it's this summer or whether it's in the next few years. I don't think Onana has done enough to convince everybody that he is the right fit. And given United are going into this transfer window thinking we need to raise money by sales from certain different places, Andre Onana is definitely one of the prime candidates for me that may end up being sold. It depends, like I say, on the interest in him from different clubs. But if that Saudi Arabia interest is legitimate, and we obviously know that there's a lot of money coming from that part of the world, if a bid comes in and United are willing to tell him that he is not wanted and they're looking to sign another goalkeeper, which I think they are, actually, it might be the right decision to let him go. What that would mean, though, is if all of my three goalkeepers are ending up going, by India, Heaton, and Andre Onana, you probably need to sign two goalkeepers. Now, number one goalkeeper from somewhere, I'll talk about these different types of players in future podcasts. I mentioned the likes of Lucas Chevalier from Lille over the last week, I think it was, in one of the recent episodes. These kinds of players are the players that you should be looking at. Obviously, you need to make sure that you're not overspending on those kinds of players, but there may be some clever stuff that United can do in terms of sales and outlays for transfer fees where they can hopefully upgrade the position for not too much money. So Bay India didn't cost too much. I think, and again, you don't really need a high level, amazing backup goalkeeper. Maybe you can find one with Premier League experience from different parts of the Premier League. United have plenty of options that have come through their academy as well that they've sold to other clubs who've had decent careers elsewhere. So maybe that's an option you can look at, and maybe they just go big in that replacement position for Andre Onana if he does go. That would be what I would do in the goalkeeping department anyway. We'll wait and see what remains to be seen. I don't entirely know whether United will end up doing that, but like I say, as with a lot of players in this first team, if you get a bid that is worth any salt, United really have to consider it. And if they can use some of that money as leverage or a bit of creative wiggle room to go and upgrade a position or spend a bit of money in another position, I think they really need to be accounting for all options and taking all of their chances. So that's what I would do in the goalkeeping department, all three out, which is maybe not the most popular thing to say, but it's probably not the most urgent position to upgrade either. But I just think I look at it and I think you could really do with settling that one down for the next 10 years or so. And Andre Onana isn't that for me. Next up, central defenders. And I've broken this down into central defenders and wing backs because I feel like there's a pretty big distinction. And I know that the likes of Nusayr Mazraoui and maybe Luke Shaw, if he ends up staying, can play both positions. But I think for me, Mazraoui looks to me like a right centre-back or a left centre-back. I think we've seen the best performances from him in this formation, for me, in one of those wide centre-back roles. So that's where I would put him down. Obviously, it's a keep for Mazraoui, but the rest of the players, Lenny Yoro, Licha Martinez, who is out injured and obviously isn't going to be sold this year because he's not expected back until later on in 2025. Matthias de Ligt, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Aiden Heaven, and Johnny Evans as well. The two goes for me, Victor Lindelof and Johnny Evans. Both of them, I think the writing's on the wall for each of those. Out of contract in the summer. Like I say, Victor Lindelof is saying he needs to play more football. It will not be at Manchester United. He's been at Manchester United for far too long. We've already seen pretty early on in his United career as well that he maybe didn't have the right makeup to be a Manchester United level player, but he's stuck around for 7-8 years. So lovely guy, I'm sure, but nothing personal. I think this is the right time for Victor Lindelof to go, and Johnny Evans as well. Fantastic servant. I'm not sure what exactly has happened to him. I think he's been out injured for a little while, but Johnny Evans, I think, will end up retiring at the end of the year as well. It's probably the right decision. And that would leave, in my opinion, United with 6 centre-backs for 3 positions, which is interesting. I do have a question mark on Harry Maguire, though. So Lenny Yoro, Licha Martinez, Matthias de Ligt, Harry Maguire, Aiden Heaven, and Nusam Mazraoui are the ones that I've got on my keep list. But I will put a question mark on Harry Maguire because he will be in the last year of his contract. I think United have taken up the contract extension on him, and it would mean that if United did get a bid of around 10 to 15 million quid, they could potentially make book profit on him. I can't exactly remember the numbers. I probably should have prepared that before I came in. But I think it really depends on what kind of bids you get for these players. And I think Harry Maguire is probably one of those players that will look like a bargain for another club. I think he's more than got a place at Manchester United. If he's willing to stay and he wants to be that rotation option with probably Matthias de Ligt in that central centre-back role, look, we'll wait and see. But if he does get a guarantee of first-team football from another club that is playing in Europe maybe or something like that, that wants an experienced head in that position, I think Harry Maguire is a prime candidate for it. Obviously has a massive wage packet, but I think United could probably end up getting around that. And Harry Maguire, it's up to him really, isn't it? But look, if you're going to get a bid for Harry Maguire of decent money, which is over his current amortized book value, then I think that's a sale. But I've got him on my keep list for now. But I do think, regardless, that United are going to need to sign one centre-back because of Martinez's injury and because of the uncertainty over Maguire and maybe some other players as well. Lenny Yoro, Aiden Heaven, and Nusam Mazraoui and de Ligt are massive keeps for me. Martinez, you can't sell him. And there's already questions over his long-term suitability anyway, but I think the position that he's played in left centre-back over the past few months before he got injured, I think he was showing that he was really adapting to it, but we'll wait and see how he recovers after he comes back from injury and see if he's the same player. Difficult one for him, but I think United need maybe to sign one centre-back. They've been linked with a few different players. Gonzalo Inacio, Dean Hyson is another player that has been linked with a ton of clubs. I think 50 million quid release clause in his Bournemouth contract, as is consistently told to us by Fabrizio Romano. Whether United spend 50 million quid on a centre-back, I don't know. Probably not, to be honest. If they're going to sign somebody, I think it'll be more in the range of 30 odd million quid, just off the top of my head. I don't think this is going to be one of the positions they go big in, but maybe they do end up getting a decent player and a decent fit for the system. Obviously, they went big on Lenny Yoro last year, and that was one that I think they will need to tie down and end up finding a place for in the first team. He's played pretty well at left centre-back and at right centre-back. I think he's really adapted over the last few weeks before he got injured quite well. And I think he'll be a fixture in the United first team to come for a few years. And obviously that's what you want. United need to sign more of those players. But whether Harry Maguire stays or goes, I think remains to be seen. But I think, like I say, there are very few players on this first team list that are absolute definite keeps. And maybe I'll run over those if I feel there are any of them. But look, if United get a massive bid that they just have to accept, given the financial situation that they're in and the wiggle room that they need, you could say, like I say, some unpopular sales and unpopular decisions made. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Harry Maguire is not going to be one of those players. But look, if he gets a bid from somewhere else, I think he would be one that I end up selling. But we'll see. I think United they could do with one centre-back. And I'll talk about maybe candidates for that in more detail on a future podcast. But maybe one centre-back, regardless of whether Maguire stays or goes. But I don't think it'll be a big, urgent need as much as some of the other positions that I'll talk about in a second. Wing-backs wise, all ticks and all keeps. We've got Diego Leon, who's going to join from a club in South America over the course of the summer. United will run the rule over him. Young left wing-back. We'll wait and see how he does. Can he stay with United and actually just become part of the first team squad and actually look the part in it? Physically, he looks like he's got capabilities to do that. Obviously, not going to pretend I'm an expert on him, but I have seen enough of him to kind of get a feel for what kind of player he is, and it feels like he might end up getting a chance on the first team preseason tour anyway. Patrick Dorgu, I think, is a nailed on keep, obviously because he was just signed in January. Really liking what I'm seeing out of him. Diogo Dalot, obviously I've mentioned Mazraoui in the centre-backs part. Obviously Mazraoui can play in the wing-back positions as well, but United really need to get out of this position of playing two full-backs in wing-back positions. And I think pushing Mazraoui down to centre-back is probably the best option, given he's played better there than in the wing-back positions for me. Diogo Dalot, I think, has been linked with moves to Real Madrid and this kind of thing, or 50 million moves to different clubs. Look, if you're getting that kind of money for Diogo Dalot, it's an absolute sell, but I don't think that's going to happen. Dalot, I think, will be there next season, and I think he's quite useful in the fact that he can play both sides. As much as I'm not entirely hot on him as a player, I think he is a useful squad player. And I think as United build their squad over the next few years, that is the player and the position in the squad that he should actually sit into, rotating in and out, not being the absolute go-to in every game. But Ruben Amorim seems to like him as well. So hopefully he can continue to progress. Harry Amas as well is another player I've got on the list. What happens with him? Not entirely sure. We saw him in the game against Leicester. Hopefully he gets a chance to really get a chance in the first team squad over the course of the next few weeks, just to see if he's actually got what it takes to hang with the team. There are some other players in the United Academy as well that could be considered for the wing-back positions, right wing-back especially. I do think that's a solution that United do need to find. As much as I've said that all of these wing-backs here I would end up keeping, I'll come back to Luke Shaw in a second. As much as I've said that all of these players I think should be worth keeping, there is not for me a completely natural right wing-back solution. And United have obviously lost out to Chelsea in the search and the hunt for Giovanni Kenda, which is a bit of a pain. But what United do and whether they put that money towards one of the number 10 positions remains to be seen. And what remains to be seen as well is where Ahmad will play in the long term. I have seen some suggestions that Ahmad will drop back to that right wing back position just because of what he adds in attack. And Ruben Amorim obviously wants wingers to play in those positions and to be able to carry the ball forward. Ahmad has certainly done that pretty well. So as much as I like Ahmad in the 10, I think there's a general consensus that he can be the best option at right wing back for United. He's been out injured for a little while now. Massive shame. He was really showing what quality that he had over the last few months before he ended up getting injured. And there's definitely a place for him in this team. It's just wondering where it's going to be and what United are going to do in terms of the investments they make, which positions they are going to be in, and which players are on the market as well, and which players are coming through the academy. If there's a really strong academy prospect coming through at right wing back who we may see maybe over the course of the next few games in the Premier League as United prioritize the Europa League, maybe that's the right thing to try out, especially with Ahmad out injured. Look at the players and the prospects you've got in the academy. Decide over the next few weeks if you need to invest in that position or if you want Ahmad to play in that position. So it's a keep on all of those. And it's unfortunately a keep on Luke Shaw as well, just because I don't think there's any way that United are getting rid of him without having to pay him off. It's as simple as that, really. As much as I like, and I do rate Luke Shaw when he plays, he just doesn't play enough to be considered. Look, if he ends up playing and he stays fit, is a bonus. But United have given Luke Shaw a massive contract. I think he's got a couple of years left on it yet. Maybe 3 years. No, 2 years, I think. He's up in 2027, if I remember rightly. United is just not going to get rid of him without taking a hit. And I don't really think that's going to happen. Am I saying that a bid is going to come out of... Look, if a bid comes out of thin air for him and it's the right move for him, absolutely sell. But I just don't think that Luke Shaw is going to be anywhere but Manchester United next season. Let's just hope he plays a lot more because he can add a lot to the first team when he's in the picture. But unfortunately, we've not seen him at all this season. So Luke Shaw, Patrick Dorgu, Diego Leon, and Harry Amas are all keeps. Depending on how Diego Leon does and how Amas does over the course of the next few weeks, could Amas go out on loan? Potentially. But I do think that right wing-back solution is something that United need to think about over the course of the next few months, try out some academy players, and then just decide if Ahmad is the right long-term fit in that position or if they need another player from outside of the club that they need to buy to play in that position. I actually forgot about Tyrell Malacia as well. He's out on loan at PSV. Whether they end up making that permanent, from what I've seen, it doesn't look like it's going too well for him. Not sure what's going to happen there, but they do have an option to buy him. Regardless, I think United have made the decision on Tyrell Malacia out on loan. He needs to leave permanently. If United can sort that out, then that is the right decision as well. But let's move on to the midfielders. Before I do that, please make sure to get involved. Drop a comment in the YouTube comment section or in Spotify. I think you can do Spotify comments as well. Please get involved. Give the show a 5-star review on those audio platforms, Apple and Spotify as well. And let me know what you think on social media at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Manuel Ugarte is a keep for me. Bruno Fernandes is a keep for me. I know I've talked about Bruno potentially being sold at some points. It depends what kind of offers he gets from certain places. Look, if United are going to get a big bid for Bruno Fernandes, I don't think anybody would blame Bruno. And this is my position on Bruno. I don't think anybody would blame Bruno for wanting to try something new after the uselessness over the last few years in the Premier League at United. He's playing his peak years of his career in a Manchester United team that is 14th or 13th in the Premier League. That is not something that he should be doing. If he's the one who decides that he wants to leave and he's got a big bid coming from somewhere, I would not begrudge him that decision. Seeing now that the Liverpool fans are obviously upset that Trent Alexander-Arnold's going to Madrid, the most obvious transfer of all time. They're burning shirts, this kind of thing. Look, I'll just say this. I think Bruno will stay, and I want him to stay. But if there is a bid that comes in for him over the summer that United can really use to reinvest in the team, and Bruno wants to go, is nothing but respect for what he's achieved for Manchester United. I think he himself deserves to have that decision in his own hands. So we'll see what happens there. I think he'll stay, like I say. But anyway, Manuel Ugarte is a keep as well. Some people throw in, mean comments under his social media post on X recently. Get a life, guys. Honestly, ridiculous. Toby Collier, I think he's a stay and a keep just because of he can offer this useful option. I don't know if he'll ever really amount to being a bona fide first team starter for United week in, week out, but I think he is someone to keep around given the uplift and the big changes that United need to make over the course of the next few months. I think Collier is a useful hand to have around. Maybe there'll be some players in the midfield positions that are considered from the academy over the course of the next few months as well. But we'll wait and see. I put Mason Mount in the central midfielders positions as well because I don't really know which one he's going to fit in. I think this is the same case for me with Mason Mount as it is the case with Luke Shaw. There ain't a way that you're selling him. It just isn't. He's on massive wages. He has been injured almost all the time. We've barely seen him since he joined from Chelsea. United just need to stop making transfers like that. Stop signing players who... Mason Mount was out for 6 months at Chelsea before he ended up leaving. I think there's different issues that he's having, but United really, really, really need to do better with not signing players who spend a lot of time on the treatment table. Regardless, Mason Mount, wherever you consider him, whether he's a central midfielder or a number 10, can probably play both positions. Ruben Amorim seems to like him, has a good attitude from what Amorim says. I think it's a keep, but no club is coming in for him based on the contract that he has and his injury record. So United are stuck with him for a little while. The best hope that they have is to try and get the best out of Mason Mount and keep him fit. So let's see if that happens. There's a couple of players that I think are on the go list. Casemiro, obviously, I've talked about him on recent podcasts. As much as he played pretty well over the course of the last few weeks, and United have changed things up a bit, long term, I think he's the club's highest earner or one of them. He needs to end up leaving as well. Hopefully, United can find a solution for him. I think they need to raise about 15 million quid in a transfer fee to break even on him on the books. It's a lot more doable this year than it was last year. So as much as Casemiro says he's like to stay, hopefully United can send the message and we can have a respectful goodbye. Let's just say that. But long term, there's not really a position in this team for Casemiro. We all knew at the time when United signed him, as much as there was fanfare about him actually joining, it was a disaster waiting to happen. And unfortunately, it's blown up in United's face over the past couple of seasons. Great player, great history. But in terms of the system that United want to play and Ruben Amorim wants to play, Casemiro is not a perfect fit for it. So it's a go for Casemiro. It's a go for Christian Eriksen as well. He's basically confirmed that he's going to end up leaving United as well. And I've spoke about these two guys and how much you will raise or save yourself in wages is about 450k a week just from those two players who are not, we all know, are not suited to the system. Out of the team, out of the squad, United can reinvest that money or save it. The other one, Kobbie Mainoo. Now, massively unpopular. It would be a massively unpopular decision if United were to sell him. And I think, like I say, given which certain reports you read or which person you speak to, United are considering selling him. Jim Ratcliffe said the other week that United don't want to sell their academy players and their academy products, but obviously it's financially rewarded given you can put them down as pure profit. That's the way that they say it, isn't it? So pure profit for Kobbie Mainoo. You can't do it for me. Kobbie Mainoo, you have to keep him. Just sort out the contract. And from what I see and from what I believe, really, I think United will find a way with this. I think United will find a way. Whether he ends up playing in the central midfielder position next season, I don't know. Whether he's better in the number 10 position off the left, I don't know. I think that's something that United need to discover. But the kid is 19. He's come through the academy, and it's the right decision for me to try and keep hold of him as best you can. Just because it's Kobbie Mainoo. You know, we were all raving about him a year ago. He scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final, and sentiment's been ripped out of United so strongly and so hard that I think selling Kobbie Mainoo would be like the last straw for a lot of people. The final detachment. I don't think United can really do that. And as much as 70 million quid or whatever the reported transfer fee and figure is, as far as that could go to helping United reinvest and alleviating their financial position, I don't think that's the right move. For me, it's a Kobbie Mainoo keep. Let me know what you think. I would hope and I would think that most United fans who are looking at this and thinking which players could stay, which players should go, I think most people will say keep Kobbie Mainoo. But me saying that doesn't necessarily mean that all of the players that are popular with the fan base are going to be kept. So I'll move on here. And maybe this is, I've been speaking about a reluctant sale over the last few weeks on this podcast. And I think it could be, and I think it should be. Should? Do I want to say should? I'm not sure if I want to. Alejandro Garnacho. Obviously was linked with Napoli in the January transfer window, was linked with Chelsea as well. I don't think this story is going away. I think he brings a zest and a freshness to United and a pace to United's attack that they simply need to have. But for me, I think this one is going to run. And I think there is interest in Alejandro Garnacho from other places. And if United are looking to put pure profit on the books and you've got a decision between the likes of Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho, for me, I don't think either of them are perfect fits in the team at the moment, but I think Kobbie Mainoo does have the qualities to probably fit into one of those central midfield and number 10 role positions in the future. It's about discovering it. I think we know a lot more about what Garnacho is. He's very direct, carries the ball really well, great energy, like I say, really good pace. And look, in an ideal world, I wouldn't be saying this. I'd be saying you need to keep him as well and have him blossom into the player that we think and hope that he could become at Manchester United. But the reality is that United need to rebuild this team and rebuild this squad. And Garnacho's really applied himself quite well over the past few weeks and past few months since he had that initial run-in with Ruben Amorim, was dropped from the Manchester derby. But the transfer speculation around him has been really strong. I think it'll continue. And it's like I put Garnacho down as a reluctant sell for me. I think it's a very real possibility that it could be sold as well. Just a gut feeling. We'll wait and see what happens with him. But if United are looking to raise money and reinvest it on players that are definite fits for the system, I think that's where you could get a bit of money from. I spoke about Andre Onana earlier in the show as well. That would be like multiple millions if they could entertain a sale there. We'll wait and see. But a Garnacho for me is the main one that I look at and I think if United need to raise money. It's a reluctant sale. Maybe not the most popular thing to say with everyone. Maybe he's very divisive, actually. I think there's a lot of people who are very firmly in the camp of sell him. A lot of people are very firmly in the camp of let's keep him and we have to keep him. But I think, just in order for United to get to the place that they need to get to, I think they need to find money from somewhere. And I think if there's interest in Garnacho, which I think that there is, and there's a transfer fee, which in the summer, money's a lot more liquid as well. This isn't January where clubs are a lot more desperate or a lot less. Clubs can plan their transfer windows well in advance. The January transfer windows are more supplementary and desperate. A lot more clubs, if they're interested in Garnacho, I think this will be the summer or the pre-season to get it done, because I think United have made their position known that they'd be open to selling. We'll wait and see. Look, I hope it doesn't happen, and I will say that. I don't want it to happen, but I think it might. And for me, I could understand United's position if they ended up doing that. But let me know in the comments what you think of that one. Joshua Zirkzee is... Look, I put him in the same camp, actually. I think he's got a completely different skill set to what Garnacho has. I think he's really adapted quite well. He's bounced back incredibly from the difficulty that he had in that Newcastle game and getting subbed off. He's bounced back. I think he's showing that he's got a hell of a lot of qualities. He's limbered up a little bit. I think he looks a bit quicker as well. And we'll see over the next few weeks. I think at the moment, he's pretty much a nailed-on player on the team sheet. So I like what I'm seeing out of Zirkzee at the moment, but I touched on this a few weeks ago, that he may be a player that could be sold just because United actually bought him for not too much money. They could actually make a profit on him. And I hate to be so binary. I don't want to look at Zirkzee like that and look at certain players like that. But if you're going to get a bid, there's a lot of clubs in Italy that like him. Whether they have the money to put up to be able to sign him, I don't know. But if a bid comes in where United can make profit on him, where they can, I think they signed him for like 36.5 mil. And they need to fetch around, from what I can remember, like 27 million-ish. Anything above that, anything above 30 million, I think they make a bit of like book profit on him. So we'll wait and see whether United end up selling him, and we'll wait and see the interest. I think, to be honest, I'm speaking that way. I think he'll end up staying. I'll be completely happy if he does stay. But I'm just looking here, like the point of this is a squad audit and what United should do and what I think United will do. I don't know what they will do in this case, but I could see why. If they get interest and there's an offer that comes in that they just can't refuse, I think Zirkzee is not so absolutely vital to United that they shouldn't consider a sale. And I think there's, like I say, very, very few players on this squad list at the moment that United look at and think you're unsellable. We've had enough reports to suggest that. Right, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho and Anthony, all players who have been playing the number 10 roles, all players who are out on loan. You know what I'm going to say? All out for me. Where Marcus Rashford goes, I don't know. We've had this conversation enough times on the podcast. I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know how much United are going to fetch for him. 40 million option for Aston Villa. I don't think that's nailed on. I've got to be honest, because Villa's financial position themselves is pretty precarious. I think they need to get back into the Champions League, really, to have that kind of money to spend. I don't know. It's a big risk for them to take that, because I think their wage percentage as against their revenue is pretty high, whereas United are pretty low down on the list, which is a good thing for United. But Villa, in terms of their squad cost and their wages, I think they're on line. And if they don't get Champions League, I think they may be in a position where they might need to take a step back. Whether spending 40 million quid on Marcus Rashford with his wages is a risk that they will take, I don't know. But I wouldn't guarantee that Marcus Rashford ends up at Aston Villa next season. It's just my feeling. But that's not to say that there's not any other options for him. I think Rashford will end up leaving. I think United need to end up selling Rashford. And where he goes, I don't know. Maybe somewhere else in Europe. We'll see. I think that's what the player wants as well. If he can show his best self in the Champions League with Aston Villa and in the Premier League over the course of the next few months, he'll have a better chance of securing a move elsewhere. He's back in the England picture as well, obviously. So good luck to him. I really wish that Marcus Rashford has a fantastic career, but I don't think it will be at Manchester United. Jadon Sancho, obviously, let's just hope Chelsea take the option on him, or the obligation, which they can get out of, to make it an option with a 5 million fee. Crazy deal. But I think I saw a suggestion today that Chelsea could sign him anyway and end up flipping him for more money than they sign him from Manchester United for. Hey, that's up to them. If they want to do that, then great. But Sancho off United's books is something that needs to happen. Anthony as well. I don't think United are going to get a permanent deal for Anthony. It could be an extension of his loan at Real Betis, just simply because of the book value on him. United need 35 million plus, I think, for him. And I don't think anybody's going to be paying that based on, obviously, the amortization cost. So Anthony, I think, will probably end up staying out on loan somewhere else or with Real Betis. He's certainly having a good time there at the moment. Maybe they want to keep him. If United just need to make sure that if they can secure an obligation for the season after, I think that would probably be United's best bet. But that's all of the loan players there. I've talked about Malacia, Sancho, Rashford, and Anthony. The final two, Chido Obi is a keep, obviously. And for me, Rasmus Højlund is a keep for me as well. Now, I very much put Højlund in the same boat as Xerxes, Garnacho, and a few other players as well. If you get a big bid for him, then a sale is completely possible. I'm being completely honest. I think United do want to sign a striker of high priority as well. So we'll wait and see what they end up doing. If they end up signing a 26-year-old, 27-year-old striker who is at the absolute pomp and absolute peak of his powers, and there's not a place for Rasmus Højlund in that team regularly, you could see him end up going out on loan or somewhere else. But I don't know exactly yet what profile of striker United or what profile of forward United are going to end up signing. They do need another option in that position, but it really depends on if he is absolutely categorically better and stronger and a stronger option than Rasmus Højlund is. Højlund gets a lot of stick, and understandable, obviously, because he's not delivering everything that he should be delivering in that position. But I think there's been a lot of unfair stick on him because I don't think the team around him works either. It's a bit of both. Højlund's not performing to his maximum, and the team aren't performing to their maximum and giving him the service that he requires. So I think a lot of strikers will actually struggle in that position. But I do think that there's more to come from him. I don't think he's a dud completely. I think there are parts of his game you can tighten up. If the team plays better and gets the ball to him in certain positions where he can score easy tap-ins, I think he can do that. And I think there's confidence issues there as well for him. So United need to work on him. But like I say, if you're going to get a big bid on Rasmus Højlund, it's, as I've said many times, I don't think there's many players on this list that are absolutely unsellable, if any. Rasmus Højlund certainly is not unsellable. If United get a big offer, or if they sign another striker who is the bona fide number 9 first choice, and that will affect Højlund's playing time, maybe United end up selling. But I think United could really do as well with an understudy to that striker who can come on and score goals. And I do think Højlund has that. But we'll wait and see. Rasmus Højlund, he's a keep for me, but I can understand if United get a bid for him, they end up selling him because there's plenty of interest in him from what has been suggested out there. But that, for me, I think that by my calculations, I calculated this before the start of the show, that would make 12 players out for me. Given I put Højlund down as a keep, obviously. But I said a few weeks ago that we could see up to over 10 players just out of United in the summer. I think that is been validated in recent reports as well. I think it's very, very feasible and very, very possible. What United need to do is then go and sign players of the right profiles at the right costs to make sure that they're saving on their expenses while upgrading their first team. I don't think it's that difficult to do, really. I think there are some players, like you've seen with Aiden Heaven, £1 million from Arsenal. If you can pick out a few players who are worth like 20, 25 million quid or something like that, that you can take a chance on, like Dorgu, that you feel can grow into the first team and you can move forward with. Not every player has to cost 50 or 80 million quid. Just because United have been doing that over the past few years does not necessarily mean that United have to continue doing that. Liverpool signed Alexis McAllister for 30 million quid a few years ago. There are deals like that out there. And I think United need to be a lot more clever and be a lot better on the transfer front. In terms of the incomings, which I will talk about, like I say, in future episodes, I think I have 2 goalkeepers, 1 right back or a right 10. I didn't say this actually. 2 central midfielders, ideally, because I think you do need more options in there with the likes of Eriksen and Casemiro going, and very likely to go as well. You could really do with 2 ultra energetic options in that central midfield area to unlock players into other positions like Bruno further forward and Mason Mount further forward. Obviously, a lot of this will as well depend on whether United are in Europe or not. Maybe they don't need all these players to come in if they're not in Europe. But I've written down 2 goalkeepers, a first choice, and an understudy. 1 right wing back or right 10. Don't spend 100 million quid on Tyler Dibbling. I don't think they will, but ridiculous. 2 central midfielders, ideally. 1 centre back, maybe, and 1 striker. So that's 12 out, 7 in best case scenario. I don't know if United will end up signing 7 players. I don't think they will, but maybe you don't really count the second goalkeeper anyway as a true bona fide first team signing, do you? So United need to revamp this squad. Whether that is realistic, I don't know. I think it's a good test of the new transfer team, though. Really good test of the new transfer team. United used to have a rule where they would buy 3 or 4 players each transfer window, and that would be it. It would be limited. And United would spend their budget on big name players, 3 players or 4 players, and that would be it. But the squad revamp needs to happen, and I think this will be a hell of a good test for the likes of Jason Wilcox, Christopher Vivell, and these kinds of people to really put United on the right foot and give Ruben Amorim a fighting chance of actually competing with Manchester United towards the top of the Premier League. It's not going to happen immediately. I think we should expect that it happens immediately, but fingers crossed that we will have a better season than we've had this time around. I think this is the worst. Fingers crossed. This is the worst that it's going to get. Fingers crossed. But let me know, guys, your thoughts on what I've said here, what you would do with certain players. If there are certain players that you think are absolute must-keeps, if there are certain players that you think have to go, that I've said United will need to keep, where you think Ahmad will end up playing, what United do at striker position, this kind of thing. Let me know in the comments under this YouTube video. Let me know in the comments on Spotify as well. Get in touch with me on social media at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And I'll be back with another Promised Land pretty soon. But please subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already and leave a 5-star review on those audio platforms. Until next time, I've been Scott from the Promised Land podcast. See you soon.